Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of Canadian Football League Weekly here on the World of Football YouTube channel. That's right, we're doing the Canadian Football League now. I am your host, Adam Snow, and as you will see every week, it'll be me along with a partner this time. Dad's here, Randy Snow. Dad, how you doing? We're talking Canadian Football League today.
I am so happy to be talking Canadian football. We have loved Canadian football for many, many years, and we talk about it on our regular podcast. But uh, we wanted to do something this year because we're going to a game in Toronto. We're going to the Grey Cup this year, so why not do a whole show about the CFL this year? So let's get into it.
Heck yeah, it's fun. It's fun talking about these leagues individually in their own special little video. I mean, obviously, we have our weekly podcast, This Week in the World of Football, which you can find on all available podcast platforms and on this YouTube channel. So if you want to hear about more than just the CFL, there's other leagues out there right now. You guys can go over there and check that out. Some other shows we do real quick. We got Just Lying Around, a Detroit Lions podcast featuring myself and my brother-in-law as we talk about, you guessed it, the Detroit Lions. I'm also currently doing Arena Football League Weekly, as if my plate wasn't full enough. Been talking Arena Football League every week by myself. That's been fun and also challenging at times with the way that league's been going. But that's why we're doing the CFL, Dad. This is a league that's been around. This is a league that I'm sure there's a lot of people in the United States that have heard of and maybe they don't know much about, but we are here to provide them also a jumping off point while we're going to recap those games this week. You thought it'd be fun to go through. And for those of you who don't know, we're going to give you some stuff and some information that maybe you didn't know about the CFL to get you kind of in on the ground floor with us as this season kicks off. And then for those of you who are experts and already fans of the CFL, you can probably jump ahead a little bit to when we actually start recapping the games. So I'm going to throw it over to Dad, and I'll let you take it.
Okay, if you're new to the Canadian Football League, if you're an American who's heard about the league, but you don't know much about it, here's some of the facts that you need to know. First thing, the field is bigger than an NFL field. It's 110 yards long with 20-yard end zones, meaning that the goalposts are on the goal line. It's phenomenal when you go to a game the first time and you look at that huge field and you see those huge end zones, and it's just so much bigger than an NFL field. It really takes your breath away sometimes. But there's also 12 players on the team instead of 11 like in the NFL, and you really don't notice it. After you're watching the game for a while, it doesn't even matter that there's two 50-yard lines and a center line, or a 55-yard line, or that there's 12 players, or that those end zones are huge, or where the goalposts are. It doesn't matter because it's just football, and it's good football. So some of the rules of the game that you'll notice: wide receivers, running backs, basically anybody but the quarterback in the backfield can be in motion before the snap of the ball, and that's a little something that you do have to get used to, because it's a little strange at first, but after a while it's just a part of the game, and you won't even notice after a while. And then another thing is they have a play called a rouge. Now, a rouge is where a missed punt or a field goal, if it goes into the end zone, there's a player back there to return it, almost like a punt. So they have to bring the ball out of the end zone if they missed the goalpost, and they need to bring it out, or the kicking team will be awarded 1 point. Now, sometimes they do that on purpose and they give up a point because they don't want to get tackled on the 1 yard line or whatever. But that's just another play that makes the CFL unique. And they're playing an 18-game season over 21 weeks. And their game has a 3-minute warning instead of a 2-minute warning. Now, there's a lot more we can get into, but that's just the basics of the game. And
I think there's one big thing, though, you left out, though, that I'm surprised wasn't in there, that I think it is a basic thing people need to know about, and it's not 4 downs in the CFL. It is 3 downs. I think that's a big thing, that once you're watching, because you're like, wait a minute, it was 3rd down, why are they punting? It moves the game. There is a lot more punting, but that's what makes it also exciting when they can't convert.
Yes, that I didn't have that written down, but yeah, you're absolutely right. 3 downs instead of 4. And people wonder why it's like this. Well, back in the early days, back in the 1800s in college football in the United States, this was kind of the rules. They had 3 downs at the time. The field was much bigger and much wider. So it's like the United States moved away from that and went to the field and the style of play we have now, but Canada stayed with the original way of playing the game, which everybody was doing at the time. And so that's why it's different up there. They stayed with the pure way that it was in the beginning.
Right on. And for those of you new to the league, there are 9 teams in this league. That's right. There's only 9. We've been hoping for a 10th team for several years now, but we're still holding our breath for it. But your 9 teams include there's 2 different, are they conferences or divisions? Do they technically call it?
I think they're conferences.
Okay, well, we'll call it the East. You have the Toronto Argonauts, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Ottawa Red Blacks, and the Montreal Alouettes. In the West, you have the British Columbia Lions, you have the Edmonton Elks, the Calgary Stampeders, Saskatchewan Roughriders, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This year, the 111th Grey Cup, their championship game, will be played in Vancouver, British Columbia on Sunday, November 17th, and like Dan mentioned up top, that's where we're going to be that day.
Yeah, very excited about that. We've been talking about it for a while, and you decided this was the year we're going to do it.
Yep, it worked out. I figure with it being in November, we kind of wanted to be in a dome. We were really hoping for Rogers Center many years ago, but never worked out. But, British Columbia in a dome, for us, it makes a little more sense. We'll be a little more comfortable than having to put on our parkas and find a sled dog to take us to the game after we get off the plane. So looking forward to it. But without further ado, we're going to throw it over to Dad, who's going to help us recap the week that was week 1 in the Canadian Football League.
All right, there were 4 games this week. There was one on Thursday, one on Friday, one on Saturday, and one on Sunday. We're going to start with a Thursday night game. The Montreal Alouettes went over to Winnipeg and defeated the Blue Bombers by the score of 27-12. And this was exactly 200 days after last year's Grey Cup game, which involved these 2 teams. And Montreal won that one in surprising fashion because Montreal really wasn't supposed to make it to the Grey Cup last year. Their record wasn't that great. Winnipeg was just a powerhouse, and they still are. So it was a real surprise that Montreal won that game. But everyone was looking at this first game of the season thinking, okay, was last year a fluke or what? And it turns out it wasn't a fluke. Montreal is here to stay. So
yeah.
Winnipeg scored the first points of the game, a 17-yard field goal by Sergio Castillo to take a 3-0 lead. And Montreal was up 14-5 at halftime and never looked back from there. Quarterback for Montreal, Cody Fajardo, completed 20 of 28 passes for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran the ball 7 times for another 23 yards. Wide receiver Tyson Philpott had 10 catches for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. For Winnipeg, quarterback Zach Collaros completed 20 of 33 passes for 209 yards, but no touchdowns. Backup quarterback Chris Streveler, who spent some time in the NFL these last few years, came in on short yardage situations and ran the ball 7 times for 32 yards. Wide receiver Dalton Schoen led the Blue Bombers receivers with 5 catches for 62 yards and no touchdowns. I watched this game.
Yeah, same. I caught a bit of this game. I was very surprised. I mean, yeah, Montreal won the Grey Cup last year, and like you said, I think a lot of people were wondering, was it a fluke? Did they just get hot at the right time and just, caught these other teams? Because, they beat a very good Argonauts team, and then they beat a very good Winnipeg team to win the whole thing. And I was shocked when Montreal was able to just manhandle the Blue Bombers in their own building, which was very unlike anything we've seen the Blue Bombers do the last several years. Like, this is not what I expected. But Montreal, I mean, they made a statement, I think, with this that, hey, not like you said, not a fluke. We're here to stay, and we're here to make another run for it. And I'd be a little worried if I was Winnipeg. I know it's just one game and it's the season opener, but very worrisome, that they couldn't, with the quarterback that they got in Collaros, to not even get the ball in the end zone. I'm a little concerned. Well, like I said, it's early. They got 18 weeks. It's only week 1, but definitely a shocker.
Yeah. Do you want to do the next one?
Sure. Then on Friday night, we had the Calgary Stampeders take out the Hamilton Tiger Cats 32-24. This was a fun one. Calgary is now the first team in CFL history to win 700 all-time games. Calgary quarterback Jake Maier completed 21 of 26 passes for 252 yards and 2 touchdowns, while running back Derek Mills had 87 yards rushing. Wide receiver Clark Barnes caught 6 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. The man of the hour kicker, Rene Paredes, made 6 field goals during this game, including a 52-yard bomb. This guy is always something else. He always seems very clutch. He might be the best kicker in the entire CFL. For the Hamilton Tiger Cats, quarterback Bo Levi Mitchell, who was formerly of the Calgary Stampeders for many years until last season, he completed 27 of 38 passes for 300 yards and 1 touchdown. He also ran the ball 3 times for 36 yards. Running back James Butler had 119 yards rushing, and wide receiver Sherm Bridges had 7 catches for 85 yards. Yeah, this game, to me, I didn't get to catch this one live, so I caught the highlights of it. This was a fun one. Back and forth a little bit, but Calgary, they seem to have a squad there, and I'm looking forward to seeing them play. But nothing against Hamilton. They got some guys there too. It's just they couldn't pull it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see this game. I had to catch the highlights. It wasn't on CBS Sportsnet here in the States, so I didn't get to watch it live, but I did catch the highlights of that one.
Gotta get yourself that CFL Plus package, man. What are you doing?
I've got a story about that, and I'll tell you that in a minute after this next game story.
What a tease!
Yeah, I'm afraid you're going to be reading the last story, and there's some names in there you're going to need some help with. I put them in there because I knew how to pronounce them, but I thought I'd be reading that one.
Oh,
but
all good. I'll power through it.
All right, I'll help you out. Moving on Saturday, it was the Saskatchewan Roughriders over the Edmonton Elks, 29-21. This is the 75th season for Edmonton, dating back to 1949. I don't know if you probably saw the highlights of this one, but the team wore that 75th logo on their helmets on both sides.
Yes, it did.
And it was also painted in the middle of the field during the game. Pretty cool. They got a nice logo for their 75th anniversary. With 5 seconds remaining in the game, the ball was on about their own 50-yard line, and the pass was intercepted in the end zone to preserve the win for Saskatchewan. It went down to the last play of the game. It really did. And that interception right on the goal line killed it for Edmonton, so they lost the game. Saskatchewan quarterback Trevor Harris completed 22 of 31 passes for 305 yards and 3 touchdowns. Running back A.J. Ouellette had 40 yards rushing and a touchdown, while wide receiver Sean Bain Jr. caught just 5 passes for, get this, 125 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 5 catches.
Yeah.
For Edmonton, quarterback McLeod Bethel Thompson, one of the best names in the CFL, completed 33 of 42 passes for 336 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Dylan Mitchell had 93 receiving yards, but it was wide receiver Henji Mayala, I think I said that right, who caught the 2 touchdown passes. So and another great game. All these games were fun to watch.
They were. It wasn't like there was a big blowout or anything in any of them. They were both teams were right there. They had chances to win it. A couple plays here or there changed the tide of that game. And this one in particular, because I thought for a stretch of this, watching the highlights and stuff, I was like, the Elks look like a team that finally has some confidence. Last year, they just, I don't know what it was. Anytime I watched the Elks or we talked about the Elks, it just seemed like they were kind of the doormat for everybody. But I think with McLeod Bethel Thompson there, who just spent a couple years in the USFL, and he formerly, obviously, of the Toronto Argonauts when they won their Grey Cup a couple years ago. I thought for sure, when they had him, I was like, that could be the start of a nice turnaround. And they got a squad. They got some players. They just couldn't pull it out there in the end. They correct a couple of mistakes, and we could very well be talking about an Edmonton Elks team that can make a push for the playoffs. Okay. And also during this game, I wanted to mention Saskatchewan quarterback Trevor Harris. He did surpass 30,000 career passing yards during this game. So a heck of a milestone for him, a name that we've been talking about for years, covering the CFL on the podcast. So good for him. And boy, Saskatchewan, always a tough team in this league.
Yep.
All right, and we'll move on to our final game, which played on Sunday night. The Toronto Argonauts defeated the BC Lions 35-27. British Columbia led this game 20-16 at halftime, and it was a very back-and-forth game the rest of the way, which I think us as football fans want. But Toronto ended up pulling ahead in the closing minutes to earn the win. Quarterback for Toronto, Cameron Dukes, who has taken over for the suspended Chad Kelly, completed 21 of 27 passes for 254 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had the highest quarterback rating of the weekend in the CFL. He also ran the ball 5 times for 37 yards and another touchdown. Running back Kadeem Carey had 65 yards rushing for the Argos, also having a receiving touchdown. Wide receiver Dejon Brisket caught 3 passes for 52 yards and a touchdown, while kicker Lyron, oh boy, here we go.
I got this for you. Kicker
Okay.
Liran Hiralahu made 3 field goals in the game.
Wow, right on. Yeah, so I watched this game, actually. I actually caught most of this game because I was flipping between this and the UFL game that was on. And boy, like both these teams, by the time I was watching, it was like 20-23 or something like that. Still back and forth, but Toronto's defense finally kind of showed up. They had a couple of big sacks, and the quarterback for the Lions, whose name you do not have in here at all,
Vernon Adams. I forgot to put the stats
the
for
BC
the BC
stats
Lions on there. Yeah.
Wow. Yep. Way to start this off. BC fans are going to hate us.
It's week 1. I'm sorry. I will do better next week.
But Trevor Adams, right?
Vernon Adams.
Vernon Adams. My apologies. So Vernon Adams, I thought, he did a lot of scrambling. He was trying to make a lot of stuff happen there. And it just, he made a couple of great throws at one point, but then he also took a couple of really bad sacks.
Yeah.
That Argos defense could be very formidable, but, I mean, the BC Lions offense is going to be no slouch either. I think there's a lot of firepower in this league. So these defenses might have to deal with letting, 20, 30 points get hung up on them, but it comes down to the end there when they can make those crucial stops, and Toronto was able to do that at home. And I believe they have not lost a home game at BMO Field since 2022, if I'm not mistaken, if I read
I don't know.
my stats and information correctly. They have not lost a regular season home game since 2022, nor allowed the British Columbia Lions to win at BMO Field since 2019. So, got that.
One thing about this game, I wanted to watch it last night, and it started at 7:00, and I was right there. And CBS Sportsnet had bowling on, and it went long. And I'm like, when are they going to start the game? It's they're a few minutes late. And so they made an announcement on CBS Sportsnet saying, to catch the beginning of the game until we switch over to it, go to CFL Plus. So I did.
Okay.
I went. I put in my stuff. I used it last year, to watch some games. It works fine. It's very simple. You put in your name, and your location, your zip code, and boom, you're watching the game for free. But for whatever reason, last night it said that game was not available in my region. So I don't know if it's because Toronto and Michigan are so close together that I couldn't watch the game on CFL Plus last night.
I don't know. Yeah, that's weird, but I mean, maybe it had something to do with the fact that CBS Sportsnet was supposed to be broadcasting the game in our region. I don't know. That is strange to me. I have not yet used CFL Plus yet this year, but I'm sure I'm going to at some point.
Yeah.
So, all right. Obviously, we had with 9 teams. 1 team's going to be on bye, so that was the Ottawa Red Blacks this week. We're going to look at the Week 2 matchups going into the next game, the next week. On Thursday night, we're going to have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers traveling to Ottawa to play the Red Blacks in their home opener. On Friday night, you're going to get the Montreal Alouettes traveling to Edmonton to take on the Elks. Saturday, you're going to have the Calgary Stampeders traveling to British Columbia to take on the Lions. And then on Sunday, you got the Saskatchewan Roughriders traveling to Hamilton to take on the Tiger Cats, leaving the Toronto Argonauts on bye.
Yeah, they did this last year, too. They started out the first couple of weeks, there was a game on Thursday, and then Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday. I like that. Later on, you're going to have a couple games on Friday, maybe a game on Saturday and Sunday. But I kind of like this, where it's, from Thursday to Sunday, you've got a game that you can watch every week.
It is nice to kind of have it spread out like that. So each night I can be like, well, what do I want to do? I have at least Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a CFL option that evening.
Yep.
Or afternoon.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that is nice. It was nice this week also to kind of either the next morning or if I had a chance. I did try to catch a little bit of each game live when I had time. It's hard to sneak in a full game nowadays with the way my life's been going. But I made sure to check it out when I can. So
yeah.
All right, with that, we're going to throw it over to Dad, who's going to talk about a few news items we had this week.
Well, mainly one news item that I have. In a press release by CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie, CFL teams now have the option to use or not use microchip implanted footballs on kicking plays. Teams will decide at the beginning of the game whether to use the microchip implanted balls or technology free balls, as they're calling them, for the duration of the game. And I didn't even realize that they were using the chips in the ball up in Canada, but obviously they are. And probably
Yeah.
some of the kickers said, "Well, I can feel the difference. It's throwing the weight off, and it's not right." And they don't. Some of them don't like it, so so they're giving them the option now to
Interesting.
either use them or not, depending on what the punter or the kicker wants.
Yeah. That's interesting. You would think that the technology is to the point like where the NFL's got the grain of rice size
Mhm.
tracker in the balls. I don't know if the CFL is that far behind where their tracking device is still like the size of I don't even know, like a coaster or something sitting in a football.
I don't know, but their footballs come from the Wilson factory in Ada, Ohio, just like all the NFL balls. So it's
Yeah.
the same place that's making them. So I don't know if they have a different microchip, for each league or what.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, I do have one news item to contribute then. We were
Okay.
talking a little before. The Grey Cup has sold 40,000 tickets already for that game in November. The lower bowl is nearing selling out. The capacity for BC, I think it's BC Place, right? That's the name of the
Yes.
stadium.
Yes.
Has a capacity of 54,500 people. So about 14,500 tickets still left for that game. I think they said the lower bowl was like 21,000 capacity or 24,000 capacity just in the lower bowl alone. So it's absolutely crazy. So if that lower bowl is getting close to selling out, that place is going to look awesome. Come game day, we're going to be in there like
Yeah.
a bunch of sardines in a can. So
Well, you would expect the championship game is going to
oh
be
yeah,
sold out, but you don't know if your team's going to be in it or not. And if you're living out in Montreal, you don't want to fly across the country, to watch a game that your team's not in. But who knows?
we'll see. I'm sure it'll get sold out at some point. It probably won't make the 64,000 record that an Ed Sheeran concert brought to that stadium, but
But
we'll
they are going
see.
to have the Jonas Brothers at
Yeah.
halftime of the Grey Cup game. So just tell everybody we're going to a Jonas concert and hoping that a football
I was
game
gonna
breaks
say, no,
out.
yeah, there's a football game around the Jonas Brothers concert. So, all right, I guess that'll do it for our talk this week of the CFL. Anything else you want to bring up before we close it?
No, I don't have a lot of CFL memorabilia, even though I've been a fan since 1994, going to CFL games. I just don't have a whole lot. I've been trying to buy some T-shirts, from the different CFL teams to wear during this. Um, and every online store in the CFL, they want you to use like Google Pay or Apple Pay or something like that. I can't just put in a credit card, and buy it that way. So I'm gonna have to make some other arrangements. But I will have some memorabilia as time goes along. But I did dig up this. I've got my
Oh,
2004 Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts cup that I've been keeping some water in here. So I'll try and do better as the season goes along.
yeah, I got a couple. I got this Argos sweatshirt, and I got an Argos Grey Cup shirt from a couple years ago, and a hat. I think I got a replica championship ring from the Argos from they won 2 years ago. Sitting somewhere. So, I mean, we got a bunch of CFL stuff. I mean, I do at least. We'll just have to start digging it up over time. And if that means I have to help you set up your Apple Pay just so you can get that figured out, I guess I'm gonna have to do that when I see you.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's not that hard. Come on.
All right, shall
All
I
right,
close
man.
this out?
Close it out.
Okay. Well, that's all for this week. And remember, folks, some people may love football more than we do, but nobody, and I mean nobody, loves more football than Adam and I sitting here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Until next time, I'm Randy Snow.
And I'm Adam Snow, and we'll see you at the 55-yard line.